Weekly Weedle fans, we are so glad to have you here today. For today, we have none other than one of our Poke MC devs, MastaC. Welcome!
Hello.
So, MastaC, we have some questions for you. I'm going to ask some personal ones, and then Michael's going to ask you some about, whatever it is he's going to ask you about. So, to kick off, what got you hooked onto Pokemon?
So, when I was 10, I was a kid. I was young. No, the serious answer is, I think, well, I was, like I said, I was probably about 10 years old. Played a lot of video games when I was a kid, and I think just by I started playing Pokemon because when you're 10 years old and you go to an elementary school full of other 10-year-olds that play Pokemon, you're like, oh, there's all these other kids playing this awesome game. I need to go check it out. I think my first Pokemon game I ever played was Pokemon Blue. And I played that game just completely through. And then that just kind of led to, alright, I'm going to play Pokemon Ruby. I'm going to play that game for 200, 300, 400 hours. And I'm going to play Crystal. And that just kind of led to, like, alright, I'm going to get almost every single game in the series. So, I mean, considering how old I am, I've been basically playing Pokemon for about 14 years.
Oh wow, that's quite a long time. What's your best moments from playing Pokemon that you remember?
Let's see. I would say, I had a couple friends that I played a decent amount of with. Him and I did a decent amount of trading together. We actually exchanged Mewtwo's. Still have the Mewtwo. While that's not very exciting, it's still nice to be able to have. And I know not necessarily a lot, but I know that there's a decent amount of people that have, when they play, they really only trade with themselves. It's nice to have a friend, or friends in my case, that I could play the game with and could trade, legendaries, rare Pokemon, really easy to find, anything, just people that you can share the game with. Out of all of the amount that I've played, one of the moments that sticks in my head is when I think I was playing Emerald. Pretty early on into my playthrough of Emerald, I actually managed to catch a shiny Aeron. That's the only encounter I've had of a shiny that wasn't like trying to use cheat codes or using the chaining methods in later games. So that was a pretty cool moment. Now I don't have that anymore because I ended up trading it to a friend, and then sadly their game was destroyed in a house fire. So that Aeron is completely lost to time.
That's a tough feat to get a shiny Aeron too, because of the damaging moves.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm pretty sure it was pretty early on into my playthrough of Emerald. So to be able to successfully catch it and not be completely shocked seeing an Aeron, like an hour or two in your playthrough, I mean that was pretty impressive.
Yeah. And so tell us, Masta, what type of music do you like?
Well, I mostly listen to. I'm mostly a rock person. As of late, I've been listening to a lot of 90s rock. I work in the entertainment business, so a lot of the people that I work with listen to like 80s hair metal. So I've been kind of getting back into that again. I grew up listening to that kind of music as well. So yeah, that's mainly what I listen to. I also listen to a lot of EDM because of being friends with Kosa. He's gotten me into EDM. So there's a few artists. I'm not the biggest fan, but there's a few artists that I avidly listen to.
Nice. And so also, you kind of talked about this before a little bit, but what type of hobbies do you have?
So, whilst I do things in the entertainment business like lighting and that kind of stuff as my job, I also do a lot of volunteer work for local community theaters and other organizations that end up doing some kind of show or benefit or concert. So that takes up a decent amount of my free time. I definitely consider that, you know, a hobby. I'm an avid gardener. This year was a decent year for me garden wise, so I do that. And I also do a lot of tinkering on like little projects that I think of. My latest project is actually building a motor scooter. Just taking an old Razor electric scooter that's got lead acid batteries, stripping all the lead acid batteries out, and then making it a full lithium ion powered scooter, which means it'll likely go faster, it'll have more capacity. So, other than that, I mean, obviously I play a lot. I play a decent amount of video games. Now that I work, I don't play as much as I used to, but other than Minecraft, I've been playing a lot of Dark Souls recently, and I also recently got back into Crash Bandicoot because of the remake, so I've been playing that. And of course, PUBG. I mean, I've been playing a lot of PUBG with Kosa and PL and some of the other staff members.
Nice. And also, just because I really like plants, so I'm kind of gearing towards plant research with my degree. I must ask, with your gardening, are you more of a flower person, greens, or do you like grow vegetables, or like what type of gardening is this?
Mainly vegetables. I do plant flowers, although I'm not really interested in doing it. It just doesn't interest me at all. I do a little bit just because it's, in my opinion, necessary for a house to make the landscaping look nice and whatnot. But for the most part, at least in most of the work that I do, no, I mostly do vegetables. Mainly the vegetables that I do, I'll do tomatoes, bell peppers, chili peppers. This year I've kind of dabbled in lima beans a little bit. Just getting towards the tail end of the harvest on that. And then potatoes, peas, carrots, strawberries. That's another big one that I do. I've been experimenting with blueberry bushes and trying to get those to develop. In other years I've done string beans. Basically, I'll start the beginning of the year and figure out, all right, what do I want to plant? What am I likely going to use? And just go from there.
Oh, that's awesome. Alrighty. And so, also, if you would like to tell us, what type of goals do you have 10 years from now?
10 years. Mainly what I'm working for right now, seeing as I'm kind of new into my career, is to, you know, advance into my career more. And if the entertainment business doesn't work out, I'm going to try to get back into what I went to school for, which was chemical engineering. So either way, you know, career-wise, my goals are to get a good, stable, well-paying job, and from there, you know, find a nice set of property, and you know, keep enjoying life. In terms of goals for Minecraft and for PokeMC, I have a lot of ideas in terms of development that PL and I have kind of talked about here and there. The plugins I'm currently working on, plugins we've thought about, and ideas that he has just recently that he's brought up to me. So it would be nice. Now, this isn't 10 years, but I mean, I figure it is relevant. You know, in terms of goals and whatnot, I'd like to see all of these ideas come to fruition. And on top of that, we were working on a modded Minecraft community that would kind of live alongside everything else in the Eximius network, which is Phoenix. With our schedules, we just haven't had time to develop it into something. So certainly a goal of mine is to try to revive that. I mean, we're thinking of multiple servers of different mod packs. Some that are really popular, and one that was just a custom curated pack that Kosa, PL, and myself were curating. I'd say that's, in terms of goals, that's really it. It's mainly my goals right now.
Aw. That still sounds like a lot of fun. A lot of work, but a lot of fun. Alrighty. So, what is your favorite movie or genre of movies?
Definitely science fiction movies. I don't really have a favorite, but you know, any movie that kind of dabbles in like the future, be it dystopian or utopian, are just really enjoyable movies for me to watch. So that's going to be stuff like, you know, Interstellar. I really like natural disaster movies. Like I'm a big fan of Twister, which is Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt. It's just an awesome movie. Yeah, that's the genre that I gravitate towards.
Nice. Alrighty. If there's one thing you could do or have in life, you can get creative with this question. What would it be and why?
Let me think about this for a moment. Right now, as it stands, if I could have one thing, or I would say, right now, it would have to be either my own theater, or my own production company. It's something I've been thinking about a lot lately with being in the business. Is what if I had my own production company that would do, you know, theater shows for, you know, the lighting and sound for High School Musicals and that kind of stuff. That, to me, that's just a really cool, like, what if I had the resources available to run my own theater? Yeah, it's. And I think the reason that I say that is because when you have your own space like that, it gives you the freedom to, just like with having your own Minecraft community, it gives you the freedom to kind of do things the way you want to do them. So, you know, this is the way I want to arrange my lights and set up my sound. This is the kind of people that I want to bring into my shows and that kind of stuff.
Aw, well that's awesome. Alrighty. And then finally, for my questions, what is your favorite animal?
That's a hard honking right there.
It is though. You got me. I'm trying to think. Recently, I was talking about some. I think I was talking to somebody about a really interesting animal.
Oh?
'Cause I wouldn't say I have like a favorite. I mean, I love cats, but I wouldn't say I really have a favorite. Well, for all intents and purposes, let's say cats, because cats are just as mundane as they are. There is a lot to be said about their behavior and their impact on society, and they're just a very interesting and arguably important animal.
I feel special. Alrighty. Well, now it's time for Michael's questions. So, Michael?
Oh, it's my question time? Darn. I thought I could get a fish for. Oh. Yeah, I got 3 fish! Anyways, so, what kinds of codes have you done, like, before coming to PokeMC or in PokeMC or whatever?
So I'm pretty much a learn as I go developer. So I've really only written what's been asked for me. You know, if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I need this," or they're talking about, "Oh, I wish I had this written or had this feature," then I'll go and learn what I need to, and then write the necessary program or mod or plugin or whatever. I don't have any real education in computer science or programming. You know, most of what I've learned is either self-taught by myself or it's stuff that Kosa's taught me. I mean, I did take 2 semesters of C++ in college, but that really barely scratched the surface of programming for me. Before PokeMC, I did have to know a decent amount of how Minecraft works internally, because I used to be an admin on Minetown. So that involved, you know, if a plugin wasn't working and I was presented a stack trace, which is the set of instructions that happened before the crash, then I had to kind of sift through that and figure out, is it something that I did or is it something that's wrong with the plugin? And then be able to effectively report that to the developer. So that's where I started. Then that kind of led to learning some scripting languages. Like I've learned Lua to be able to use computer craft and FTB. And then once we got into kind of managing the server through SSH, I got better at how to run commands in a Linux command environment, which then involved writing scripts to automate certain processes. And then over the past year or 2, I've been working with Kosa on some of his projects, or kind of sitting there and kind of picking up how he writes plugins. And whilst he's been busy with his own stuff, I've been pitching in with things that are at least within my skill level. You know, more at least simpler plugins, or if it is more difficult, you know, kind of taking my time and figuring out, you know, how am I going to write these plugins, what kind of features do they need, and all that stuff.
Okay. That sounds complicated.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot there, and you, as a programmer, you need to be mindful of what you have to be able to tell somebody like PL that there's features that need to be implemented, and then there's certain things that are possible, but are going to take time, and especially considering that I'm not the most skilled developer, it does take me a lot of time to implement even simple features.
Huh. Personally, I have another questions for you because Willow did a pretty good job asking them all. And I don't know what else to ask you, to be honest. Willow, do you have anything to ask?
Well, I mean, okay, say a person never had developer experience. What do you recommend would be the first step they would do?
Well, first, the first step, I'll give like a few, like the first few steps that I would recommend.
I would like that because I tried getting into coding and I hate for Javas and I lost my mind almost.
Yeah, that's one of the first things I would recommend is you have to come to terms with the fact that you're getting yourself into something that's it's a career. You know, this is something that people go to school for years just to learn how to do some pretty what may seem simple, some pretty, but on, you know, internally is some very complicated stuff. So that's the first thing is you have to be willing to say, all right, this is going to be difficult, but I'm willing to learn what's necessary, and, you know, understand that I'm going to make mistakes, you know, and I do have to start somewhere. Now that's applicable to more than just programming. That's applicable to almost any career you're going to get into, but programming for me, that was one thing that, you know, initially it's hard because, you know, I may be good at a lot of other things, but programming is something I'm not naturally good at. So you have to be able to come to terms with that, and then from there it's mostly you have to ask yourself, what do I want to be able to do, and what tools would I like to be able to learn how to use? Because every language becomes a tool. Now, certain languages you're going to need to learn if you want to develop for certain games or companies. Like for Minecraft, you need to know Java. If you're developing something for one of the other platforms that Minecraft is on, then you might not necessarily need Java. Although there's not a lot of mods out for any other platforms, you know. But certainly for the Java version, you need to know Java. You need to be able, as well, if you wanted to develop, you need to be able to understand how other people write their code, and on top of that, how a group of people write APIs. If especially early on, understanding the way in which people write APIs and how certain things are very generalized is important, because they're not going to tell you how to specifically write features for your mod. You have to, or your plugin. You have to be able to infer that in that, what they give you in the API. Like a great example is right now I'm working on being able to obtain files from the jar through some get asset methods, and the documentation on Sponge does not just explicitly tell you, if you want to get a config file, use this method. No, it says if you need to get a file from your jar file, it needs to be somewhere in this folder, and you use this method.
Yeah, I noticed that.
You have to. There's a lot when you have all that code written. Sometimes it's hard for developers to go back and very explicitly document their code because they know that people of their skill level are likely going to read the code and know exactly how it functions.
I kind of noticed that with the SpongeForge API documentation. I was like, Pio goes, just read this, you'll find everything you need to know. And I was like, this makes no sense. It doesn't help me.
Yeah. You kind of have to read in if you want to understand it in layman's terms. You have to be able to read into the code and understand. Okay, so they name this feature is named this way because they decided to name it, you know, X. You know, if it's like a class that helps to deal with blocks, you know, or it might be named in such a way that doesn't seem obvious, and then you have to understand, like, what is this class inheriting? You know, is it inheriting another class that then gives you more functionality? Is there restrictions put on this class that prevent you from doing what may seem like perfectly legitimate ways of doing something, but for them they're limiting that because it could potentially pose maybe a security risk, or it could mess with something else in the Forge environment. All of those things are, you know, that's just one example, but that way of looking at an API and being able to understand, like, what's expected of you as a developer, and what are you expected to know in order to be able to write the features you need.
Since you understood that more than I did, Michael, you have any more questions?
I personally don't have any questions. No. I feel for you, Kyra, but my brain hurts too. Probably not as much as yours, though.
So right now, specifically as a developer, there's a couple things that I'm mainly working on. We have a lot, and I'm gonna try to keep this vague. We have a lot that we're working on behind the scenes that we're still transitioning a lot of old features off of old code that is either obsolete, it has more features than we need it, or some of it that just doesn't work anymore. So there's a lot of stuff that we used to use that just doesn't work, or that we'd like to add more to, like the current chat plugin, like the server utilities plugin that does a couple miscellaneous things. My main job as a developer right now is working on the custom server utils plugin, taking the features that are necessary from that plugin, pulling them out and rewriting them from the ground up. That's things like the random teleporting. There's a command that used to do that. There's like a few little features that are kind of integral to the PokeMC. And I'm also working on a custom chat plugin that will almost completely mimic the old chat plugin to a T, and should add a few new features that the current one doesn't have. And then from there, we've been toying around with some event plugin stuff, like some really cool, like, what if we added this feature to the events plugin that gave us even more flexibility, or even more features, and allowed us to add maybe even more events in the future. There were some ideas that we were toying around with back in May that could possibly work for this events plugin. I think the other thing The other thing that I've been working on, this was before PokeMC, but I'd say is decently related. I think PL and I have discussed about possibly adding this in the future if need be. I have a plugin now. I don't know how well this would work in Pixelmon. It was mainly written just for general Forge use, but what it does is it tracks. It can track certain blocks that the user places on a whitelist. So let's say there's a couple blocks in the game that we only want the player to be able to place a certain number of. Now, I'm not saying that that's something we're concerned about, but it is helpful to know, oh, how many. Let's say hypothetically we wanted to be able to track the number of like heal stations that the player has placed, right? This plugin allows you to track that specific block, and the number of that block that's been placed by each player. And then we can go further with that and say how many did they place in the overworld, in the nether, in the end, that kind of stuff. So, and for what it's really useful for is Forge. If you want to limit chunk loaders, this is not something that people have a lot of. There's not a lot of options for this currently out there. If you want to place chunk loaders on an FTB server, most servers just say, all right, I'm gonna allow this person to place as many as they want, and then the server is full of chunk loaders. But this plugin would allow you to say, all right, you're only allowed to place like 5 chunk loaders, which helps to keep lag down, because then people can't just load the entire map up, and keep it force loaded. Yeah, I went a little off topic on that. And like I said, I have a feeling you're gonna have to cut that, but it's certainly stuff that could be relevant to PokeMC in the future.
Well, I think that's it for me.
Well, anyways, although I think our minds are still simmering just from all the words. Okay, well, Michael's fine. Would you like to take us out, Michael, if your brain is fine then?
Well, it's been a pleasure, MastaC. Actually, MastaC, get over here. Where are you?
1 sec.
MastaC's been running around lots.
I may have slash homed and then farmed my entire apricot thing, or apricorn thing, and then like
MastaC?
Yeah. Yes?
Will you stand in front of us? I swear you are just like Kyra. Oh my god. That's it. Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, that works. Up here. Thank you, MastaC, for joining us today, or tonight, rather, and, well, it's been an honor getting to interview you, and, hello, I don't know what the next part is. Oh, thank you all for watching, and, sorry there hasn't been a, interview in a while.
We've been busy with life.
Oh, yes. Yes, we've been busy. And, Kara, I don't want you to say a word. And also, yeah, this is a great outro. Yeah, round of applause. See you next time.
Bye.